Are we ready?
Yes.
Oh, good. I got it right here. All right, ladies and gentlemen. It is now time to begin. Board of Directors meeting for Soquel Creek Water District for Tuesday, June 16th, 2026. We will start with roll call. And Jennifer Balboni is one of the directors attending remotely.
That's
Director
correct.
Balboni,
Present.
Vice President Christensen,
Present.
Director Jaffe,
Here.
Director Lather,
Present.
President LaHue.
I am here. Great, thank you. So now is there anyone that would like to make an adjustment to the agenda? Any consent items that need to be pulled or no? Okay, so then we'll move on. Any public comment? Like,
No public.
okay, any board comments about anything not on tonight's
Yeah.
agenda? Yes.
So I was looking at the Aptos Times, the June 1st edition, and we've got a very nice article that about understanding chromium-6 in our water. This right here, and just wanted to give kudos to the people, probably mainly Rebecca, right? That wrote this. It's
That's well done.
very well done.
Oh,
So
I
I
didn't
just
see
wanted to
it
point
yet.
that out. I can give it to you.
Okay, I don't get the, I don't live in Aptos.
Well, the Capitola
So
Times
those
is
so
paying.
well, we also have it. Anybody else? Thanks for sharing that. Okay. So next would be consent items. Any public comment on the consent items? Seeing none. Any either board comments or motions to approve?
Move to approve the 4.1, 4.2.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. And then we need a roll call.
And just stand by. We had some technical issues with the CTV saying they don't have audio.
Have what?
Audio. So the community TV tech just came in to tell Sophia that we're having audio difficulties.
Hold that vote.
Hold the vote.
I'll just fill in for a second. I just wanted to, glad to see the fairway tank getting its updo. Finally.
Oh, fairway tank.
Yes. Looks good.
I was just in Monterey. We've all stayed in Monterey in hotels, and boy, they're serious about water conservation there. They got it noticed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, I didn't ask for water for drinking, but just in the hotel room, talking about serving the resource.
Yeah, I came across it. It was a fairly old article from New York Times from a couple of weeks ago. And they said across the country, through the entire world, the cost of water is increasing drastically. So we're actually in a minor bad situation. But yeah, because there's so many people you wouldn't even think, cities, states, you wouldn't even think having to come up with a water project in the inland. Yep, and there is no money.
Saw water down the street
They would tell you.
for overwatering.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. I remember that here too, though.
I think a public area or something.
Hmm.
It's a
How
lot.
are we doing?
Yeah. think our only other alternative would be to return everything off and then try it again. And that could take half an hour. So CT, we do have it through Zoom and are recording it, but it won't be on community TV. But as Josh mentions, it's not required legally.
I mean, I think they've constantly had problems with this system, so I don't know that we should go through a troubleshooting episode right now.
Okay, we can check with CTV if they would want this.
What are we up to now?
We are recording the Zoom video for purposes of generating the minutes. We'll see if it's possible from a tech perspective to get that uploaded to the website after the board meeting if the board's comfortable moving forward.
There's good news.
Never mind.
Now it's working?
All set. Yeah.
Never mind.
It just needed to
All right.
get its wiggles out, I
Just as
think.
a question,
Okay.
do we have any viewers on CCTV right now?
Well, you could later.
It's not live. Oh, okay.
So where we last left off,
Yes.
there was going to be a roll call vote on the consent agenda.
Director Balboni,
Yes.
Vice President Christensen,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes.
Director Lather,
Yes.
President LaHue.
Yes. Okay, so we will move on to reports. First of those is District Council
Thanks, President.
in person.
In person, and I do have an update. Actually, it's a tangential to the issue that Dr. Jaffe brought up in his comments. As the board may be aware, there are, while we're working for compliance with the MCL for Chrome 6, there's a consortium of water districts that are challenging the rulemaking that adopted that new standard. And while we're not participants in the litigation, it's something we've been actively monitoring, of course, given the potential impacts to the district. The trial court in that case just issued its decision denying the challenge to the rulemaking. Really important to note that the judge in this case isn't deciding whether the rule is a good idea or a bad idea or even sound policy. The judge is really looking at whether the state followed the proper procedural rules in adopting the rulemaking without weighing in on the underlying technical facts. And so in doing so, the judge determined that the state, in his opinion, had followed the proper procedures denying the petition. It's possible that those districts may appeal the decision. If they do, it's about a 60-day timeline, so would anticipate that we would hear by the end of July and be able to update the board at your August meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
And then we have district updates. Was there any oral component to the reports?
No, obviously we have just in terms of our regular reporting, we did do some updates to the special board assignment list. Leslie has prepared the May finance report. And then again, we've brought forward the combined administration and business services bi-monthly report. Just a couple highlights I'll point out. We've obviously been working with our ad hoc committee for the 65th birthday celebration for the district. We also are looking and exploring funding opportunities through the State Water Resources Control Board for a potential funding of the 123 TCP treatment project. We also have provided comments to another second 15-day opening for CARB's ZEV amendments. That was due this week. We also welcomed Beatrice, a new customer service representative in April. And Leslie, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go ahead and report out on the number of applications we got. So just wanted to make sure that the board stays informed that with this year, we approved the customer assistance program, and Leslie and Valerie and her team have been working really hard at receiving and processing. We had received 147 applications, and 128 of them have been approved thus far. And so that $50 credit will be applied starting in the July bill. And then I think everything else is available if you have questions.
Thanks for reporting on that. That was going to be one of my questions.
Okay.
And the 128 that were approved, how's the $50 a month for 128 people compared to what we budgeted for it?
Leslie's doing a thumbs up.
We're good.
We're good? Okay. And other question I was going to ask was, we had it open for 1 month, and I take it that's because the water year starts in July, and we wanted to, or our fiscal year, sorry, not water year. We wanted to get it in place by that time. But is there anything that precludes opening it up again if we have budget? Because these things sometimes take time for word of mouth for it to move through the community.
So we do want to leave some budget funds available for people who move into the community.
Excuse me,
People who move into the district during the course of the year don't have to wait for the open enrollment period. That's just for existing customers. So we want to leave some budget funds available for new residents that may move in.
If we don't have enough to, if somebody didn't know about the deadline, didn't know about the program, for them to apply still?
No, but they would be able to apply in the next open enrollment period next year. So if they find out about it and they've missed the month window, then we just advise them to go ahead and make sure they submit their application next year.
That's kind of harsh. It's a year.
We are keeping, that was part of the bringing the program to the board for approval. You were interested in us collecting how much interest there may be for people so that we can kind of quantify how many may be requiring or requesting it after the period for them has closed.
Yeah, and in the 3 weeks, 2 weeks since it's closed, we haven't had any inquiries about it.
Okay. So, all right. So remind me of how that's funded again? Is it from
It's funded through our penalties fees.
Okay.
So for the penalties we collect on delinquent accounts, we use those funds.
Hypothetical, if we had enough in our penalties fees, and there were people who applied not next year, but sometime mid-year or whatever, because they found out about it, are we able to accommodate that?
It depends upon how many new residents we have moving into the area requesting.
Yeah, and how much we get in penalty fees.
Right, yeah.
But
That's kind of why we set that open enrollment period, because we know what we've budgeted at that point in time.
Yeah.
And until those funds actually start coming in, we won't know the ceiling.
Okay.
So we have to budget pretty
Probably
conservatively.
the entire board is very supportive of the program, and personally, I want to make it as lenient as possible for people to become part of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
Yeah.
you also have to administer it and plan for it. I understand that, given those constraints.
Is the sum that we have available this year pretty constant? Is that figure the same year to year for the most part?
No, so what we've collected in fees for 2025-26 is what we have available to fund 2026-27. And it'll be like that every year. So we've got a finite
it will
amount
vary.
of funds that can fund this program.
And first come, first serve then.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I did have another question.
Go for it.
Page 92 of 630 in the agenda, or it's actually, there's 8 pages in front, so it's the 100th page. It's a question for Melanie. I think it was in your updates about the Santa Cruz Regional Water Management Group meeting, June 10th. And remind me Who?
That was my question.
Oh, sorry.
Page 92. No, that's great. It's page 92 though, isn't it?
Well, it's page 92, but if you go to page, it's the 100th page. It says 92, but there's pages that don't have any numbers on it.
Oh, well, there you go.
Anyway, so just can you tell us more about
Sure.
what that group is and how that meeting went?
It's a meeting that I think is loosely around the integrated IRWM, Integrated Resource Water Management Plan. Previously, that was kind of a group and a coalition that would help administer projects that got IRWM funding from the state. This group continues to meet. A lot of times it talks about other projects or other types of funding that is available that kind of brings water, watershed coalition groups. This one had a presentation. There were quite a few different presentations. One particular topic that was covered was about some projects and funding for Prop 4 and potential grants and a combination of efforts related to San Mateo County and Santa Cruz County. So it's a way for local groups to meet, talk about water projects and activities, and kind of share what everybody is doing.
And who's included in that?
Well, we are always invited. It's usually hosted and run by Tim Carson over at the Community Water Foundation. There is a board that is comprised of, Sophia, do you know who's on the board? Thank you.
It's run by the Regional Water Management Foundation, which is a part of the Community Foundation. The board of the Regional Water Management Foundation is Sierra Ryan from the county, Heidi Lukenbach from the city, Perrette Harmon from Salinas Valley Water, I believe, and then a few representatives from the Community Foundation itself. And then that's who kind of administers the Regional Water Management Group meetings. It's run by Tim Carson.
So it sounds like we should be actively involved with that, and perhaps be on the board. I don't know if we've been invited or not.
They have
Or-
the,
yeah.
from what I understand, the board is comprised of one public utility representative.
So the board of the Regional Water Management Foundation is pretty small and fairly inactive. I mean, they just don't do that much. And it's weighted very specifically because of our relationship as a subsidiary of the Community Foundation. If you're talking about being on, kind of included in the Regional Water Management Group, I'm happy to ask Tim Carson to include the board in future meetings. But that is different than the Regional Water Management Foundation, which is a very small nonprofit. That's who I work for.
What we can do, if you're interested, it meets twice a year or once a year.
I think twice a year. They try for, depending.
We do. Staff attends, either myself or Taj typically attends the meetings. And before that, it would be either Taj, myself, or Ron. It has a large email distribution list. The meetings typically are either held in person or in Zoom. So if you are interested, we can ask that board members be included in that. And if you want to attend, you're more than welcome to.
Was that how we originally kind of, was the funding for like MGA's leadership and stuff funded through that Regional Water Management Foundation?
The Regional Water Management Group, and I want to say it was kind of comprised to oversee the IRWM funds, which is separate from the Sustainable Groundwater Management Funds for Sigma.
And it sounds like there might be a heavy ecological component to it. Because
It
I know
typically
Sierra,
does.
that's a passion for Sierra Ryan.
A lot of the funds that come or pass through from the state come through and are usually like some like watershed related. And that's where there might be some groups that are more resource conservation
Okay.
focused.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions on that? I have one quick one. I noticed just on the next page, you had described in business and customer service. So it said that you're going to begin beta testing a new chat feature in WaterSmart. And one of the things I just wanted to know is, does it ever get to a human, or is it one of these ones that circles around back and forth through an AI bot?
You mean, is it irritating?
Right.
No, it is not linked to a human being. It just is a search engine for the site. You can ask it things like, when does my water bill due?
It's a search engine.
Yeah, and it will search your records and your bill and tell you when your next water bill's due, that type of thing.
Thank you. Okay. So it's time to move to our business items, which the first of which is a big one. It's presentation on the groundwater year 2025 sustainability report. And I think, Melanie, you're going to introduce and then introduce Cameron.
Sure. Obviously, we're very excited to have Cameron and Josh here in person tonight at our board meeting. As many of you know, Cameron Tana with Montgomery and Associates has been our hydrologist and really focused on our groundwater activities here at the district. In the past, an annual report has been provided to the board, and more recently, a lot of the focus and the discussion on the annual report, the groundwater sustainability plan, and most recently our 5-year periodic report has been provided at the MGA. There was interest by the board to have that information be presented here at a board meeting, so we've asked Cameron to provide an overview of that. In addition, he is providing some highlights and overview of the recent seascape seawater intrusion study that was also conducted by the MGA. And of course, 2 other components of tonight he'll focus on, and I'm probably stealing your thunder because it's probably a slide, but he's also going to be describing some activities progress from Pure Water Soquel's recent operations, as well as to inform a piece of item 6.2, which will be Alyssa's item, which provides some context and a hydrology standpoint related to a water shortage contingency and stage declaration. So, welcome, Cameron.
Thank you. Yes, it is great to be here in person and get my mic on so you can hear me. As Melanie mentioned, basically, I have a number of things to cover. A lot of it was presented in more detail to the Santa Cruz Mid-County Groundwater Agency back in March. So we'll be summarizing that today. And then you get the bonus of hearing for more information in this water year, 2026, with Pure Water Soquel operational and what effect on groundwater conditions we're seeing so far from that operation. So the first part will be, the first 2 items really will be reviewing what was presented to the MGA in March, and that includes discussion of the annual report for last water year, which is a requirement for the groundwater sustainability plan, and then a summary of the seascape area seawater intrusion study. Both those documents, I think, are part of the packet for your review. We'll summarize them today, and then we'll move into more recent information about what the effects of Pure Water Soquel are, including the sustainability benefits, what might that mean for the water shortage contingency plan, which is Alyssa's item, give you some information for evaluating whether a water shortage stage should be declared. And then we'll provide information on the tracer study that we're conducting as part of Pure Water Soquel, which is a regulatory requirement to make sure that Pure Water Soquel is protecting public health. So as far as the annual report for the GSP, this is a review of what the annual reports are. They are required by the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, and they're submitted to the state Department of Water Resources to describe implementation and progress for sustainability under the GSP. And so the the Groundwater Sustainability Agency for your basin, Santa Cruz May County Groundwater Agency, is responsible for submitting this report as they're responsible for achieving sustainability. You are represented on the MGA board with 2 representatives, and then the 3 other partner agencies also have 2 board representatives, along with 3 representatives from private well owners, I should say private well owners. This report is submitted by April 1st every year, and it covers the previous water year, which is October to September. So the last report was the 7th report since the GSP was adopted, and all the reports are available online. The report describes hydrologic conditions for the last water year, so talking a little bit about climate, precipitation. Did note that it was below average precipitation in the previous water year. Meanwhile, water use was slightly up from the prior 5 years, with about 100 acre-feet more basin-wide than the previous water year. Groundwater is the majority of the water supply for the basin, so water use was up in water year 2025.
Cameron,
Yes.
interrupt with questions?
Yeah.
So when you talk about basin-wide usage, how well do we know that number? Should we, put error bars of hundreds of acre-feet or thousands? I hope not thousands, but.
Well, the usage is in the thousands, so error bars of our thousands would be quite large. So as there are different, depending on the water use source, the source of the data are different. So for the municipal users, like yourself, City of Santa Cruz, Central Water District, those are all metered information, and so very accurate. And when we talk about from year to year what the changes are, though that's really what's being represented is our measured data. And because for the other users, there is some measurement, but a lot of it is estimated. We do estimates based off of climate and any changes in land use that are noted, but those changes are small. So the changes we're noting are really measured changes. If there are changes that we're not measuring, we are missing them. But I do think given the scale of the usage, we are talking maybe 100 acre-feet or so in the potential error bars. But if there is potential for missing some usage that has changed over time.
Right, but year to year, since you're estimating, the part you're estimating for estimating it inaccurately one year, unless the inaccuracies change in the next year, your delta is still accurate. Yeah, or close.
Well, I think
What you're saying, right?
I think when we talk about what has changed from year to year, those are generally, it's from the municipal pumping because we have the data, and then the estimates, they do change based off of climate. So there is an assumption of greater use during warmer, drier years. And so that's what it's representing. If there is a big change that is not noted, that's what we potentially are missing. But when we say 100 acre-feet per year, 100 acre-feet last year more, it is from the municipal pumping.
So is that mainly then Central, Soquel, a little bit?
And City of Santa Cruz, yeah. Yeah.
What percentage?
Well, the centrals are pretty constant. The cities can vary quite a bit because they are, their main supply is surface water supply, and if depending on that varies, their groundwater usage can vary quite a bit. And so there was a change in the city's usage last year.
To more,
Yes.
The large private users like Cabrillo, those are metered and included in that.
Yeah, there is reporting to the county for some private users.
Thank you.
so this requires projecting into the city, though. Like, if they did more this year, we all had the same drought conditions and everything, but is it due to the drought or due to their additional building?
I think it is related to drier conditions and the surface water supply is their primary factor.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries.
What's the question?
The question was, does it include their ASR, so injection or recharge of water at the ASR wells? And they have done that in the last few years through some of their pilot studies. One difference in last year, I don't think it included pilot recharge at their wells, so they didn't have that offsetting any of their usage in the last year.
Okay.
So the other, and this is very similar to what my colleague Georgina King presented at MGA back in March. And what we're going through next are the different sustainability indicators that really help us assess the health of the basin and whether it's sustainable. And the most critical one is seawater intrusion. The unreasonable conditions and unreasonable risk for seawater intrusion are the reason the basin is considered in critical overdraft. And like in prior years, water year 2025 showed undesirable results for seawater intrusion. And that includes both groundwater levels, where groundwater levels are lower than the sustainable management criteria at 8 of 19 representative monitoring points, indicating an unreasonable risk of seawater intrusion. So those are undesirable results and a reason the basin is considered unsustainable as of water year 2025. And then also chloride concentrations that are rising and are above the minimum threshold of sustainable management criteria for chloride concentrations where there is advancing seawater intrusion. And those undesirable results that occur in the seascape area down in the southeast part of the district and the basin is a reason why the MGA conducted a seawater intrusion study, which is what I'll be talking about next. And one of the interesting things that we're looking at there is that the concentrations are rising, but actually the groundwater levels are above the groundwater level proxy sustainable management criteria. So on one end, it seems like we're managing it the way we want to, but we're not getting the results that they're meant to achieve. So that's one of the reasons why the study was conducted. Go through the other sustainability indicators that are applicable to the basin, including chronic lowering of groundwater levels, which is really meant to maintain groundwater supply for the basin. And at the representative monitoring points, there are no minimum threshold exceedances. In other words, there's no groundwater levels at these wells that are dropping below where they need to be to support groundwater supply. So for this indicator, the basin is sustainable. Another indicator is reduction of groundwater in storage, and this is measured by basin next extraction. So this is basin-wide and pumping minus any managed recharge, where managed recharge is really only through projects like Pure Water Soquel and the city's ASR project. And this is designed to be a guide for how much pumping minus managed recharge is necessary to prevent undesirable results for other indicators where basin conditions and what is needed, what is the sustainable yield to achieve sustainability in the basin conditions. And right now, the net extraction is above that sustainable yield and minimum threshold. So this is considered an undesirable result for the basin in the water year 2025 report.
Can you talk about sustainable yield in an overdrafted basin? To me, that's an oxymoron. There is no sustainable yield if we're unsustainable.
Yeah, so the sustainable yield is more of a goals, and it's really an estimate of what the pumping needs to be to achieve sustainability over the long term. And so the GSP makes that estimate of what pumping minus managed recharge, so minus recharge at projects like Pure Water Soquel, is needed to achieve sustainability for all the other indicators that we discussed today, primarily seawater intrusion. So it basically said, and it's really specific to what the plans are, because this number could change depending on how you approach it. But if you implement projects like Pure Water Soquel and the city implements ASR, what is the number needed to prevent seawater intrusion? And that was estimated with modeling in the GSP. And so it's an estimate and kind of a goal to shoot for. Also, it's really dependent on what the results are for the other indicators. If you're achieving this goal, but seawater intrusion is occurring, this is really not, serving its purpose, and it would probably have to be evaluated.
Yeah, I remember the sizing of the Pure Water Soquel plant was based on, was it 20 years filling, creating the same amount of volume that it would take to remove the deficit that we had in the basin. Very crude, but yeah. I might not be understanding it, but if we put water back in with Pure Water Soquel, isn't part of that water going to streams, into the ocean, or increasing the amount that goes to streams into the ocean? So we put 100 units back, not units, if we put, 1,500 acre feet a year back in and 300 go to streams, we can't really get credit for the 1,500. It should be 1,200, right?
Well, part of achieving sustainability is preventing depletion of interconnected surface water and preventing seawater intrusion. And to do that, you do actually have to have flow out to the ocean, out the stream. So we do actually, in this framework, do take credit for that, in that it is counted as something that is needed to prevent seawater intrusion and maybe benefit interconnected surface waters as well.
So those numbers are based on modeling estimates then?
They are based off of modeling estimates.
And is that model been validated?
The model we have used since the GSP, so it's calibrated for the GSP, and then as we continue to use it, do reevaluate it against new data and validate it as part of that. There have been times when we've looked at the model and said, this part of the model needs additional calibration, and we have done that as well. So the model has been updated since the GSP to account for new data, checked against new data for the most part, especially when evaluating response at the coastal representative monitoring points that we use to evaluate seawater intrusion. The model has performed very well against new data, but there are other places where we have updated the model, mostly in understanding what the response in the aquifer to injection is, like at Pure Water Soquel SWIP wells and the city's ASR wells.
The real gold standard for the validation will be, once Pure Water Soquel has been operating for a period of time, to see if the model is able to forecast what happens to the basin.
Yeah, that would be a really important new data, and I really do anticipate that there will be a need to recalibrate the model at that point, because we are having new data and kind of new operational conditions, and so we do want to see operation of Pure Water Soquel and hopefully City of Santa Cruz ASR and data under those conditions to calibrate. There has been effort for the MGA to revise the model based off of new geological data, like the state's airborne electromagnetic surveys that provide a lot more data inland that we didn't have before. So we do have a model that incorporates the data, but we haven't calibrated it yet because we want to wait for the new data under the new operational conditions.
Iterative, improving. All Charles Bock's 1976 paper. All models are wrong. but some are useful. So
Yeah, I appreciate the citation because that's used a lot without citation. So that's nice.
So anyway,
And the goal for that recalibration will be for the next periodic evaluation for the GSP, which is due in 2030.
thanks. Didn't mean to get too much in the weeds.
Well, that was a nice update, though.
Yep, that's
We haven't heard
for-
that about modeling in
Mhm.
a couple of years.
One of the sustainability indicators is degradation of groundwater quality. There are some groundwater quality issues in the basin, but they are not considered undesirable results. So iron and manganese the district treats for is naturally occurring. So it's not an undesirable result because basically undesirable results are any minimum threshold exceedances, concentrations that are too high that are a result of groundwater management or groundwater pumping. And this is naturally occurring, so it's not a result of that. TDS and chloride, there are exceedances, but that's related to seawater intrusion and covered by that indicator. And there's also a legacy issue in one well for nitrate as well. And because that was predated the GSP as a result of groundwater management. What will be, this does come into play when looking at how a project like Pure Water Soquel operates, is that you don't want Pure Water Soquel to result in degradation of groundwater quality. And that's why we do things like the tracer study I'll talk about later. Depletions of interconnected surface water, these are set as groundwater levels in shallow wells along Soquel Creek that are meant to support interconnected surface water and want groundwater levels high enough to support what has been supported historically. And there is at one well groundwater levels that are below the minimum threshold along Soquel Creek. So that is considered an undesirable result. In summary, for the sustainability status of the 5 applicable sustainability indicators, the 6th in Sigma is subsidence, which is not applicable for the Mid-County Basin. 3 of the 5 have undesirable results. So because there are undesirable results in the basin is considered not sustainable, and the MGA has until 2040 to achieve sustainability. The annual report also describes the progress on GSP implementation for Water Year 2025. And because it's submitted by April, it does have some information about what's happened after the previous water year. It noted that the first periodic evaluation was submitted. The periodic evaluation is a requirement for groundwater sustainability agencies to evaluate their GSP every 5 years. So there's more evaluation than the annual report provides, and potentially amend the GSP. This periodic evaluation did not include any amendments for the Mid-County GSP, so basically are operating under the policies set under the GSP that was submitted in 2020. Noted continued water conservation and demand management, resulting in pumping much lower than historical amounts. And then gave an update on projects, including Pure Water Soquel, where construction was completed in Water Year 2025, and that replenishment began in December of 2025, 1 month after the water year ended. It provided an update on the City of Santa Cruz's Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project, where progress is related to their plans in modifying their existing production wells to become ASR wells. So that is in progress with the first conversion scheduled for completion this year, 2026. As far as takeaways from the annual report, like prior years and basically and since the GSP and from well before, the basin is in a state of overdraft because of undesirable results for seawater intrusion. There are also undesirable results for interconnected surface water and reduction of groundwater and storage. and then progress on projects, notably Pure Water Soquel, beginning groundwater replenishment, which will help reduce net groundwater pumping below sustainable yield and address the reduction of groundwater and storage indicator and help reduce undesirable results for seawater intrusion. I'll mention this later, but Pure Water Soquel was not designed to address a depletion of interconnected surface water. There's a potential for benefits there, something we'll monitor, but it wasn't designed to do that. That's basically the summary of the GSP annual report, and we can take any more questions on that before moving on to the seascape area seawater intrusion study. So with the seawater intrusion study, which was the second item presented in March, and is I think a longer report that, especially with the appendices that is added to the packet, trying to condense that summary down to the 3 slides here, and definitely a lot more detail in the reports. But this is really just coming out of those undesirable results with actual seawater intrusion in the seascape area, which is centered around your production well, the seascape well, but in the vicinity of your San Andreas production well. And there are a lot of several non-municipal pumpers in the area as well. Chloride concentrations have been rising in the wells in this area. And the impacted aquifers include the Romus Red Sands, which is the shallowest aquifer, and the Persima F unit. Your wells, your production wells, are screened and extract from both the Romus Red Sands and the Persima F unit, while the private wells, non-municipal wells, tend to be in the shallower Romus Red Sands. So just really skipping over a lot of information to get to the key findings, but also showing examples of some of the information used in this report. And these examples are really focused on the geophysical surveys that have been done to support the report in the last 5 years or so. Other data that we use for this report include groundwater levels, groundwater quality, some geochemical information, as well as some modeling tests as well. This is some of the newest information for geophysical, that provide geophysical data. They include an airborne electromagnetic survey by the state, DWR, back in 2022, flown from a helicopter, similar to the 2017 survey that had been done by the MGA. And that's the biggest image there at the bottom. For this study specifically, additional electromagnetic data were collected at stationary points. It's called STEM, which is stationary time domain electromagnetics, at specific points in the area. And then a couple of induction logs were done at 2 of the monitoring wells in the area as well. So using some state data as well as some data specific to this study, and found that the shallow Romus aquifer is mostly unintruded, although there is a localized thin shallow saline zone that has been noticed in both this STEM data and the induction log. The seawater intrusion is rising in areas, getting shallower. We see this in comparing the 2022 AAM data to the 2017 AAM data, where we see kind of more brackish conditions based off of the resistivities, where the blue is less resistive and more salty, but it became more blue at shallower depths. And then do see historical seawater intrusion to advance inland in the Persima F unit. So what are the risks related to this? The study found that the risk from the thin salinity in the shallow wasn't much of a risk to the nearby wells, and that for the deeper seawater intrusion, that is generally below the production wells, so there's lower risk to actually affect drinking water quality. However, there is do want to prevent the rising of that seawater intrusion to shallower aquifers, and that expectation that reducing pumping in the area, which will be supported by Pure Water Soquel, will help prevent that ongoing increase.
Just so I understand the graph there is, or the illustration, is that little yellow wedge, is that where that mixing that was described in the report is occurring?
Yes. Yeah. So the blue is saltier water and the red is fresh water. This is just basically the way the state reported it. In the past, we've kind of flipped the colors, but the just being consistent with the state. And then with the yellow, it is more of a mixing, and we're seeing more of that yellow at shallower depths in this area.
So there's only one point in time for this data, right?
It is all three of these data are one point in time data. I'll discuss a little bit in the recommendations about kind of continuous data. But the one thing is the induction log over here at the well is easy to repeat. And so, as you'll see, the MGA is planning on returning to this well and the other well that did an induction log annually to get annual snapshots of what it looks like at the wells. And it's nice because you can get information about the conditions all the way through the depth of the well and not just rely on where the well is screened.
I have another question. Just, in the description in the report, I couldn't quite tell, but there's a well really close to the coast, right near the monitoring well. Is that at Camp St. Francis? Do they have a well?
I think that might be the well. I'm not sure about the location.
Okay, and then
From that there was an
Greens.
effort to not really name.
Okay, so Seascape Greens has an irrigation well, and then there's the whole. And
then there's a couple of there's an ag well nearby, and then
ag well for sure.
and then a few domestic wells further inland.
Okay, yep. Those all seem pretty close.
So the recommendations from this report include kind of additional monitoring recommendations, which are on the left marked in blue, and then kind of additional evaluation recommendations, which are in orange. So the monitoring recommendations is to continue monitoring with devices kind of permanently in the wells or like left in the wells to monitor groundwater levels and electrical conductivity so that you can get information over time in the wells at the depths of the well screens. That is very depth specific. So to get the full information of the whole depth is to do induction logging annually at two of the wells. And then the third item is to try to engage private groundwater pumpers, both with the information from the study to try to encourage new monitoring partnerships to expand the monitoring data that we can collect as part of additional study. And then the evaluations is really to evaluate how pumping reductions supported by Pure Water Soquel help groundwater conditions in the area or change groundwater conditions in the area. And then at the next periodic evaluation, there is a plan to reevaluate the sustainable management criteria. Like some of them are not sufficient, or they're not, the groundwater levels, proxies as they are, do not seem to be preventing seawater intrusion. That's my quick rundown of the 80, 90 pages before the appendices report that's in your packet.
So we have a lot of data along that line, that one line. How much data do we have in the alongshore direction?
Yeah, so the some of this, and it is just a snapshot, but oops. Okay, yeah. So this data, this actually goes in an inland cross section, but there are a few points along the coast as well that help provide information of recent conditions along the coast. I think you see some differences in depth of where you see seawater intrusion along the coast, but I think it's consistent with this overall picture, just where we are, where it's a lot, the shallow, it is fresh, and then deeper, it is saltier. I think it's more that we do see advancement of seawater intrusion from depth moving inland and upwards. And so it's starting to mix this saltier water, starting to mix with the fresher water. And so it's more of a brackish condition at a shallower depth. And basically brackish water is not drinkable. So it doesn't have to be near full strength seawater to affect water quality and beneficial use. Yeah. Right. So that is the basis for the conclusion that it is moving shallower, is in that the comparison to the 2017 survey shows it as more brackish at those shallower depth, more yellow in the way it's shown here. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's definitely, we circle a specific area, but I think if you look at this whole area of more yellow, that is just generally more yellow than what we saw in 2017.
So the blue and the yellow are denser than the red.
Yep.
So it's something's pushing it in and up.
Right. So this is very typical flow around the freshwater seawater interface, where the saltier, denser, like you say, water goes deeper, and then the freshwater flows on top of it. When we look at the groundwater levels between, say, this well A2 and the more inland A5, we see a groundwater level gradient at the deeper depths that are going inland. And so in this area, we see something that is driving the salt water inland, and it's also resulting in moving upward as well. In the Romus, we do still see the groundwater level gradients going offshore, which is part of the reason we think the risks for that thin, shallow silent zone are low.
This is a dumb question, but but remember it was Scalmanini's well down there in Seascape area. Where is that relation to this AEM?
So it's definitely not a dumb question, because those wells are critical to this evaluation. We use data from those wells. There are multiple wells that they installed that we're looking at, and that's really our longest term data record is from those wells. And they're in the GSP, at least some of them are in the GSP as representative monitoring points. So this is kind of the reason that what the study was needed is information from those wells. So, and these two wells are both wells that were originally put in by Ludorf and Scalmanini. The district replaced this A2 well, which is why there's the R there, but it's in the location and constructed similarly to what Ludorf and Scalmanini was put in. And those were actually put in the bracket seawater intrusion. So the deepest well always had high chloride concentrations. The big change is that we're seeing it in the shallower screen. And those concentrations have increased over time. And that's kind of the first indication that seawater intrusion is advancing in this area. And similarly for the A5 well, which is right at the site of your Seascape well. So on a map, it's here, SCA2, which is circled here in orange. And then inland of that is the Seascape well, and SEA 5 is right there. So that's kind of the line that we're looking at. But most of these wells were actually put in the 80s by Ludolf and Scalmany. So those include A3 to the south, which shows seawater intrusion in the Aromas, shallower Aromas area. And then they put in A1 to the north, which actually they never saw. They were trying to get the seawater intrusion, but they didn't. And so then they stopped. And we have never seen seawater intrusion in those wells. So don't see it up here in the north, but do see it advancing here towards the south.
Cameron, can you point to the two inactive wells that we have down there, which is cells inactive wells? So there are two wells that are down in that area that we have stopped pumping.
Right. So these two wells are in the Romis, and the district no longer pumps them for other water quality issues, but it helps. It means that seawater intrusion, there's not much more the district can do about seawater intrusion in this representative monitoring point. So if we see advanced in seawater intrusion in this area, the district has also already basically turned off pumping in that area. Yeah, so I'm not totally sure why it's called non-community well, but I'll have to get back to you on the specific well owner or anything like that.
And I remember the neighbors to the south, the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency, doing pumping there, and that models show that, at least in a mass budget, that there's 100 acre feet or something going towards the south because of that.
Yeah, so Pajaro Valley also does an annual report like the one we do in them that they have for this basin. That so shows generally improving conditions, but a lot of it is not really looking at kind of this area along this boundary, because their projects are further south about providing delivered water to reduce pumping along the coast. So there's not much management of this part of the Pajaro Valley subbasin. Any other questions on the Seascape area study?
I was looking at the last one, actually.
Last recommendation or?
Reevaluation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so.
What do you mean by that?
So there are a couple of things going on there. One is that in addition to criteria for chloride concentrations, we have criteria for groundwater levels, and those were designed basically to prevent chloride concentrations from going up in that area, and chloride concentrations are going up. So something about that is not working basically for preventing seawater intrusion. So that needs a new look. I think basically the way that those groundwater level proxies work is that they're really good for where seawater intrusion hasn't shown up, like in the Prisma, but in this area where we have seawater intrusion occurring and maybe even inland of where those groundwater level proxies are situated, that something different needs to be done. So that's part of it. And then I think another thing is just looking at what is needed to protect beneficial use, recognizing seawater intrusion has advanced since the GSP. Has it actually affected drinking water? It hasn't. And so how do we reevaluate, what is needed to be protected?
Another grant.
Hopefully. So Pure Water Soquel, this kind of the new information we have come every year, and we've always said Pure Water Soquel is coming, and we're looking forward to seeing what it can do for the basin. And even in the months since the start of operation, we do see some effects in the groundwater from Pure Water Soquel. So I wanted to share that with you today. So basically, with the replenishment starting December 1st, in the 5 months, approximately 570 acre-feet of purified water has been replenished into the groundwater basin at 3 SWIP wells after treating into the Transoceanic cleared site and distributing it over to the 3 recharge wells, with about half the water going into the Twin Lakes Church well and the other half split approximately evenly between Monterey and Willowbrook, with a little bit more going into Monterey. And so that's definitely a great accomplishment, and we can see is that starting to do what we wanted to do as far as preventing seawater intrusion. Looking back at what we were planning on and expecting in the GSP is that expected benefits from the project were for seawater intrusion prevention specifically, not necessarily to address other indicators like interconnected surface water. And the prevention of seawater intrusion was going to be accomplished by 2 different mechanisms. One was with direct recharge into the Prisma A and BC units at the recharge wells themselves. And this is an example of what the model at the time showed to be effects of that, with pretty rapidly rising groundwater levels with Pure Water Soquel operating. And the other part was to actually increase pumping near the SWIP recharge wells and from the same aquifer units that the recharge wells were recharging, while reducing district pumping in other aquifer units so that the district could prevent seawater intrusion throughout the district. And so the GSP modeling also showed the benefits of raising groundwater levels to prevent seawater intrusion in those other aquifer units. That was modeled to occur more slowly. I think that has been borne out even in the first few months, where we do see an effect from the direct recharge, but not from this reduced pumping yet. So I should be showing results related to the direct recharge into the Prisma A and BC units.
What's the time scale on those?
The full time scale takes us out to 2070, which is the full time scale for the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. It was kind of getting close to its peak in less than 5 years or somewhere around there in the way it's modeled. But then as far as seawater intrusion benefits, and we accomplish those benefits by raising groundwater levels at the coast to prevent seawater intrusion. And this is an area where we're not seeing intrusion yet. So we're trying to reduce the risk of intrusion by raising groundwater levels to prevent seawater intrusion over the long term. And from the wells in the coastal representative monitoring points in the A unit near the SWIP recharge wells, we do see increasing groundwater levels with operation of Pure Water Soquel. And they arrive, they're increasing to the measurable objective, which is the goal for where we want to recover the basin in this area and at these wells, at all 3 of these wells. SE5RA, we did see the increase, and then the transducer did fail, so that needs replacement to continue data collection, but we got enough data to show that groundwater levels at the coast are already increased quite a bit with the recharge from Pure Water Soquel.
It is. And so how far are these wells from where the monitoring wells from where we're injecting? Was it a pressure effect or?
So it's a pressure effect. This is not indicating that the purified water has traveled to these wells.
Okay.
It's just raising the groundwater levels through through a pressure effect. These are the closest coastal wells to our 3 recharge wells, and we see the effect.
And the recharge wells are in that figure on the top, the squares. So you can see the squares are the SWIP wells. Let's say Monterey, Willowbrook, and Twin Lakes Church. And then the extraction wells are the triangles. And then the monitoring wells are the circles.
Now, for preventing seawater intrusion over the long term, the sustainable management criteria are based off of 5-year averages. So the prior 5-year average through 2025 did show 5-year average below the minimum threshold at SC5A. So to prevent seawater intrusion over the long term, you kind of need to keep up the recharge and have the water levels be higher over the long term and show that it's occurring over a 5-year period. So the Prisma BC unit is a shallower unit that the Twin Lakes Church well to the east is also recharging in addition to the A unit. And so we do see there was actually some pumping changes that resulted in one of the wells starting to increase before operation, but with operation it continues to increase higher than measurable objective. This is an SARB. It's actually artesian at that monitoring well, so it's at the ground surface. SC9RC, we also have a transducer failure, but we do have manual measurements that show that with operation, groundwater levels are well above where they were prior to operation, and another piece of equipment that needs to be replaced. But the data do show that groundwater level conditions are higher to prevent seawater intrusion in this unit as well. And in both these wells, the 5-year average had been below the minimum threshold, indicating undesirable results.
So artesian?
Yes.
So it's water's coming up out of the surface.
So at the monitoring wells, the water level is higher than the surface. It does not, the only way it gets to the surface is through the well.
I see.
And so the well is capped, so except when the district goes to measure the water level, the water does not come out of the surface.
So it looks like those monitoring wells are not that close to the SWIP wells. So is that just from decreased pumping in the wells over that way?
I think that's a part of it, but I think kind of with these increases, we do see an effect from recharge at the Twin Lakes Church well as well.
Okay, so it's still, the pressure effect gets all the way over there.
Yeah.
I think
So, simple question. Is the plan, since it's obviously doing more than necessary at those locations you're showing, is plan to pump close to where the, still a safe distance, but close to where the injection wells are?
Yeah, so at the surrounding wells, the plan is to increase pumping and to help reduce pumping elsewhere in the district. And that just started to be implemented during this period. And so that has been the plan, to increase pumping as supported by this recharge with these higher groundwater levels.
I think if you go back to this slide here, I thought was a really good summary just from the modeling on the difference between the top graph and the bottom, which again, sometimes it takes me a couple times to hear it and receive it and understand it. The top one obviously are the monitoring wells that are closest to the seawater intrusion prevention wells. So those are the direct benefits. And then the bottom one is like what Cameron was mentioning, more of a managed benefit, because we're able to do some in lieu benefits. As we were touring a lot of the other recycled water facilities down in Southern California, and they talked a lot about their injection wells and how many they had to have. It was because a lot of those agencies were just the replenishment agency, and the groundwater extracting agencies, they just pumped what they needed to. So they had to actually put in more injection wells in front of their of their extraction. Here, because we do both, we're able to kind of balance and maximize and optimize injection with managed pumping. So far, it's early, but so
Yeah.
far.
Yeah, so I think there's still parts of it that need to be implemented fully, and then we can kind of see the effects of the full plan over time. But at least for the most direct recharge, we see positive effects right away. So that is encouraging.
So this is the data that you'll use to recalibrate the model and validate that it's
Right.
performing
Right.
well enough to have some confidence in the forecasts for the future.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is use the data to basically say that the plan is working, without needing to forecast more with the model. And then the model can be used to plan out, different uses of the project. So
Yeah.
you do want to change how the pumping is done and make sure that the benefits are throughout the basin and the region.
Or what it used to be $64 million question is, can we recover the basin and sell water to Santa Cruz or
Right. And so the optimization study that we conducted through the Sustainable Groundwater Management Grant, which was a modeling study, showed that there was that potential. I think, with the Pure Soquel operation, you can also test these kind of changing the pumping that could be support selling the water and say, what is actual effect and adjust accordingly. So I think we've kind of actual empirical tools that we can use to test these possibilities.
And how much water is being sent away now during this time?
There was some transfer occurring during this period.
Come on. We currently have the O'Neill pump station on, and Nick can talk about that.
right? So you can see.
We've had the transfer on for about 2 months now. We've sent about 75 million gallons over to the city of Santa Cruz.
So 200 plus acre feet.
Yeah, great, thanks.
So with this new information, we can kind of evaluate declaring a water shortage stage. In previous years, went through a whole evaluation based off of the prior water shortage contingency plan, the new urban water management plan, other new trigger conditions that are shown here. And the questions are groundwater conditions not progressing towards or maintaining sustainability? And so I think even with just a few months of pure water Soquel operation, that there is demonstrated progress towards sustainability with respect to groundwater levels at seawater intrusion representative monitoring points. So not seeing this trigger condition in place. And then the second one was net pumping in excess of target. And with the recharge from pure water Soquel, the district is on track to have net pumping below the target. So with what trigger conditions are in the water shortage contingency plan and the new urban water management plan, they're not being met in my opinion.
So, Cameron, when the trigger conditions also for different stages involve the whether we have undesirable results, we still have those, right? For the groundwater levels and for the chlorine level and for the stream situation too. Or do we not have those, or we don't know yet, or what?
I don't think those are in, those have really been replaced by this evaluation because with Pure Water Soquel, the idea is that to give it time to address those conditions and not look at the current situation with undesirable results. You do have undesirable results now, and now you have a project that is addressing at least the main undesirable result of seawater intrusion. So my understanding is that the specifics that we had in the previous water storage contingency plan for like number of undesirable results are no longer trigger conditions.
We're rewriting what we think is it is what triggers stage.
Right, for triggering a water shortage stage. I mean, I think the conditions show that you need to be doing something to achieve sustainability. You are doing something with operation of Pure Water Soquel. So I think the idea is that that project provides progress towards achieving sustainability such that a shortage stage is not needed for that purpose.
I see. So we're sustainable now.
You're not sustainable now because you do need to show it with the 5-year average, the long-term average for preventing seawater intrusion. And with Pure Water Soquel, without a shortage stage declaration, it looks like you're making progress towards achieving that.
We have a stage 3 right now.
You do have a stage 3 right now. I think that's what the topic for the next agenda item
Right.
is.
So at what level of production, for the Pure Water Soquel would be needed to, what do you foresee of considering current conditions and pumping?
Mhm.
What level do we have to pump to move towards sustainability in this 5-year period?
So with Pure Water Soquel was designed for previous projections of demand, which were quite a bit higher. So they were in the 3,900 acre feet per year range. In the GSP, under current planning, we are using the latest urban water management projection, which is 3,250 acre feet per year. So under those conditions, we do see the Pure Water Soquel achieving what it needs to do at that current projected demand.
In what time frame?
Under the model, it's within 5 years. I mean, it might be faster than that based off of what we're seeing so far.
I guess the point is that it doesn't have a trigger because we're moving towards it already. And so having declaring a groundwater emergency isn't necessary to be moving where we want to move, is what I understand.
Yeah, I can speak to that. The reason that we did modify this as a trigger condition was just the recognition that it's not our only tool to decrease our production. Now we have other tools that may address a particular problem better than a global reduction in use.
Okay.
The only thing I would think about is just whether we need to put another well closer to seascape.
That could have an effect. I mean, you do basically see what the effect of direct recharge is in the area of the Prisma where we do have those 3 SWIP wells. I think we do have a plan to address the seascape area with the reduction in pumping. And so that is going to take a little longer time to implement and see the effects of it. And so I think we'll see how it goes. And if that's not sufficient, then you start looking at other options like another well.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, no, it's very encouraging.
Anything else?
Yeah, one last thing, and that's the tracer study for Pure Water Soquel. And so this tracer study is required by groundwater replenishment with recycled water regulations to protect public health. And if you recall, we did do a lot of modeling and calculations to estimate how long purified water is underground in the aquifers before it's extracted for drinking water, and that's part of a environmental barrier to help protect public health and the quality of the water when used for drinking water. And the tracer study helps show that the purified water is in the ground long enough to protect public health. And so there are two types of tracers we're using. One is an intrinsic tracer, which is basically the purified water quality. So the water quality of the purified water is different than groundwater. It is more pure than the groundwater. It has lower total dissolved solids and lower specific conductance. And so we're basically tracking those parameters to see when the water quality becomes more like the purified water. And at two of the four closest monitoring wells, we have seen arrival of purified water a little less than and a little more than a month out from start of injection. We haven't seen it in any of the other wells, but these results today are consistent with what the requirements for protecting public health. To fully show that, we need to continue monitoring and see when purified water arrives at other wells to show that all the requirements are being met. But so far, they are consistent with what we need to show for that. The other tracer is an added tracer, which we're using a drinking water safe NSF 60 certified dye, which was added to all three recharge wells at the beginning of April, and can monitor at the monitoring wells for the dye to show up when it's analyzed by the lab. And we have seen it in very similar times as the intrinsic tracer, so just less than and a little bit more than 1 month at two of the closest monitoring wells, and haven't seen it at the other wells yet. And again, these results are consistent with the permitting requirements and protecting public health. So far, continue to monitor for arrival at other wells to get the full picture.
How different are they than the requirements? Is it a factor of 2? Is it 10%?
With these, the requirements have a range. Like the monitoring wells, you needed to show in the estimates that it was at least 2 weeks and less than 6 months for these monitoring wells. So it's quite a big range. You don't exactly have to show that. The main thing is, what can you show of how long it takes to the nearest drinking water well? So it does require kind of a longer period to say it's in for multiple months. But
At the current rate, when would it reach the nearest drinking water well?
when we modeled it, the nearest drinking water well was in between 30 and 36 months.
Okay.
And so right now we're not seeing anything that would change that drastically. We really only need to show that it's about 8 to 9 months. So we do have a lot of room to play with.
And the thought there is that were there anything in the water, it would be cleaned up during that travel time by microbes in the aquifer.
Right. So, as part of the permitting of the project, you do get credit for the amount of time it's underground for reducing any potential viruses. And then you also need to make sure there's enough time to respond to any issues at the plant before anything arrives at a drinking water well.
The state has regulations, so what they want to do, again, if you're like an agency that does not have, you just do your extraction wells and not the injection wells. If there were to be an issue that was done by another entity and impacted you kind of downstream, you had enough time to put together a response plan to, shift your pumping or do something else to mitigate that well that could be impacted.
It's great news. It is. Did anybody get any dye on them during the process? Oh no, I've gotten it on me before. I've got it in your eye.
Sounds like it was pretty clean when I talked to John Laney here in this picture.
We
It
used to
seemed
fill
to
up
not
water
have to-
balloons with this and shoot it into the surf zone to track the surf zone to track rip currents.
Many uses.
The study itself will last for 1 year, right?
It will total from the beginning of operation about 15 months because we started the added tracer 3 months after the intrinsic tracer, and we want to track both tracers for a full year.
All right. Good.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's great.
so putting it all together, since we have to make a decision in the
Well, this is going to present that.
well, no, I want to ask Cameron.
Okay. Let's go be here. Go ahead.
Are you going to still be here?
I'll still be here.
All right, then I'll wait.
Okay.
I guess we need public comment, right? Or,
Yes, now would be the time after the presentation to allow public comment on that issue. All right, not seeing any. We'll move on to 6.2, which Alyssa will introduce, where the annual water supply and demand assessment and water shortage declaration. Okay. Alyssa.
Yep. Quick moment to get our tech set up.
Yes, we're pleased to have Alyssa back again. She was just mentioning she's been here a lot this year, especially with the urban water management plan. And then, of course, this is an annual assessment that we do to help declare a water shortage for this coming year. So welcome, Alyssa.
Thank you. I'm pleased to bring this. It's been a continuation of a long journey this year. And so, yeah, this is the annual water supply and demand assessment and water shortage stage determination. We usually bring it a little earlier in spring after the end of the weather year, but with the changes that we've had to the water shortage contingency plan, we're bringing it a little bit later this year. And so this is kind of where we are in the process. We did bring the demand projections to the board in January, and that is a big component of our annual water shortage, the supply and demand assessment. So this is kind of where we come up with our demand. Then in March, we brought to you the new trigger conditions for the water shortage contingency plan. So those are the conditions that assess whether or not our supply is adequate to meet those demands. Then in April, the annual report becomes available, the weather year ends, some of those data points we need for the annual assessment become available. Then at our last board meeting, the board approved our urban water management plan and water shortage contingency plan that is a 5-year report. So good to get that one done. And then we are here at June 16th for the presentation to the board on this item where hopefully you will decide upon a shortage stage if it is required. And this all does feed into reporting that we have to do to the Department of Water Resources, which is due July 1st. And so the annual water supply and demand assessment, AWSDA, is this process that we're undergoing. And it is annual, so it's looking at our demand and our supply just for the next 12 months. It'll probably be a little bit shorter than that on this round because we'll probably bring it next spring. And the point of this entire process is to determine whether or not the demand is exceeding the available supply. And then it's to determine that if a reduction in our total production is the desired method to address that shortfall. So in the past, that's been the only tool that we've had. And now it isn't, fortunately. So it changes the equation a little bit. But if it is determined that a reduction in demand by the district is required, then the water shortage contingency plan outlines 6 water supply shortage stages with curtailment targets from 5 to greater than 50%. And so this is what that looks like. And so you'll see that a stage 3 under our newly adopted contingency plan, a water shortage emergency would have a production target of about 2,400 acre feet. That's compared to what our production was last year for district use was a little over 3,000 acre feet. So this does differ pretty considerably from our last water shortage contingency plan because we had a baseline kind of normal use set a lot higher at 3,900 acre feet. So when we brought the demand projections to you earlier this year, our demands have kind of recalculated what that baseline is. We're considering that normal usage is a lot lower, closer to what we see now. So our baseline demand is set at 3,250 acre feet. That's even a little high compared to what we have pumped the last couple of years. We went with the slightly more conservative baseline that was for the last 10 years of usage. So this is the demand that I was talking about, and you can see the previous baseline of 3,900 acre feet and our current baseline of 3,250. And this is, where we are, just over 3,000.
A little hard to read the numbers on the bottom. So it's 2010.
Yeah, this is from 2010 to on the right side, it has to 2030.
And the big drop is during the drought.
Yeah, so those first couple of years are kind of showing the before the drought and all of the state action. And then we had a really significant drop. This was around when the stage 3 was initially implemented with the 25% reduction. And so what is remarkable about this is that, 25% reduction was put into place and it was largely met. A 25% reduction over 3,900 acre feet puts us at about 2,900 acre feet, which, so we can really, it was a big success, all of the conservation efforts that we've done. And one thing that we want to say about demand too is that the stage 3, it put us on a good path with our conservation programming, and we did see a big drop in demand. We don't necessarily think that a stage 3 is what is keeping us there. We think that a lot of the actions that have been taken by our customers to reduce water usage are kind of built in at this point. We see a lot of passive savings from efficiency upgrades and a kind of a change in the culture around water use.
Just want to make a comment that one thing that we both benefit from and suffer from is that the messaging that our customers get is really from statewide media, not from local media. And so in this case, I think we definitely benefited from how much of the statewide message during that drought and, the 2014, 2015 time period was, I think, behaviors changed.
Yeah, absolutely. Statewide, it was a big reduction.
So also just the rate increases that we've been required to make to keep the budget balanced has had a significant effect on how much people are really aware.
Yeah, rates are definitely a factor that goes into our demand projections. They're considered a demand driver that is pretty significant.
Unfortunately, we have to maintain that.
So that's kind of the supply or the demand side of it. Then we look at supply. And so these next couple slides are just going over those trigger conditions. Once again, those trigger conditions being what are we looking at to determine if our supply is adequate? And we have a couple of different things. You know, we're not a surface water agency where we could just say how high is the reservoir. You know, so we have a couple of things that kind of factor in. The first one is just a production-related shortfall. So that is, can our infrastructure meet what we expect it needs to meet? And so to assess whether or not that's true, you know, we talk to our operations and maintenance manager and look at any expected maintenance or if wells are not going to be operational. And so for this coming 12 months, we don't expect that there's any infrastructure changes that would lead to a production shortfall. The second is rainfall. And rainfall is one we've looked at for years. It's kind of indirectly related to groundwater health. And so we look at 5 years of rainfall. Last year, that being from October 2025 to April, is about average actually for rainfall. And then over a 5-year period, it's about average. So we don't expect that to lead to any shortfall conditions. I'm not going to go over the groundwater conditions one since we just had a presentation on it, but we do not, the trigger condition of groundwater conditions not progressing towards or maintaining sustainability, we are showing progress towards sustainability.
So that's a new trigger condition that's being presented now.
Yeah, it was part of
I
the.
was here at that meeting, so I didn't vote on it.
And then the next one is the net pumping exceeds target. And so that target being 2,400 acre feet that was indicated by the groundwater modeling for the GSP. And the net pumping is our groundwater pumping minus the recharge from Pure Water Soquel. And based on our expected demand for the next 12 months and our anticipated recharge from Pure Water Soquel, we do expect that the net pumping is going to be considerably below that 2,400 acre feet. And so the next steps, we are currently operating under a stage 3 water shortage stage emergency under resolution 1908. And that has a 25% curtailment over 3,900 acre feet, leading to a production target of approximately 2,900 acre feet. And now that we have a new baseline, a stage 3 is a lot more restrictive. Instead of being a production target of 2,900, we're closer to 2,400 acre feet, which is lower than we've ever been. So we are recommending to rescind resolution 1908, and that would effectively remove the shortage stage. And if another shortage stage declaration is desired, then we would come back with a new resolution for that.
But if we don't have a stage declaration, then we don't do a resolution then?
Correct. We don't need a resolution to have no stage. So I can answer any questions if they come up.
So let's see, no, it would be time for public comment, however. I don't see anybody rushing to the podium. So board questions, comments, motions, things like that?
So I'll ask Cameron the question now.
Okay.
So 2,400. is pretty key in all this because, well, you could say we're progressing towards everything being good, and that's optimistic and perhaps realistic, but we won't know for a while. But the 2,400 is based on modeling, because that's something that's presented in the memo of where we are relative to 2,400 for net, the production minus what goes in from pure water. I see. So the 2,400 assumes that all the 1,500 goes to injection then. Okay. Okay.
Like,
Yeah, go ahead.
just from the graph, it looks like, if it stays around 3,000, or even 3,200, with the recharge, the net would be, 1,500 to 1,700. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which page are you looking at?
Yeah, what page is that? I mean, I saw it in there, but I didn't.
And this slide shows that same graph that we showed, but it also shows the kind of net pumping trigger that would trigger each of those shortage stages based on our contingency plan. So that would be like if our net pumping was closer to 3,000 acre feet, then that would indicate a stage 3, or may indicate a stage 3. We're not forecasting that target, that we're going to be at that level.
Okay. Thank you, Alyssa. Any other questions?
It's too bad we have to do this right this second. Not having gotten through the summer. We'd have a better idea of what.
Yeah, I mean, the baseline has come down so much, regardless of what season it is. That's one thing that's influenced us the most, is just our baseline is nowhere where it used to be. We're already at a very low level of pumping. And so the question for this item is really, do we think that our production needs to go down further than it already is?
Also, whether it's appropriate right this minute, do we have enough data? We just started injecting December. Is this enough of a time period to know how this thing, the trajectory is going?
Right, and currently kind of in this period of early evaluation of Pure Water Soquel and its benefits, there's actually, I think, some advantages of extracting more than to put a reduction and say, okay, what we're doing right now, we want Nick and our O&M team to reduce pumping by 5%, because we really want to show, in the conservative side, extraction higher to see how the basin would react and how the coast side monitoring wells are reacting to more extraction. In addition, we obviously have Pure Water Soquel on, and we want to be operating that, in a higher volume of what it was designed to be. So we're kind of in this phase of a lot of data collection, a lot of evaluation of looking at the model and how it's performing to some real world. So there's definitely, I think we're in a state of kind of there's opportunities and also kind of a new way of like going from a stage 3, which we do really want to ensure that our customers are still beholden to the idea of water is essential and our basin is still somewhat endangered. So I foresee that, working with Becca and the outreach team, we're still going to have that message. This doesn't mean that, just because the trigger conditions don't show a stage 3, we're not taking our foot off the pedal in terms of outreach messaging and, still evaluating the basin. I think.
We changed the trigger conditions, so
Yeah, but I think,
you can't, we're not evaluating the way we did last year.
Right.
So to say that the trigger conditions indicate something means that the way we changed it indicates something. So we have to be pretty sure about how we changed it and that they're good.
well,
still
I mean, I
it's-
think,
yeah.
I think a lot of effort went into trying to develop trigger conditions that, we've changed them over the years. I mean, it used to be just following Santa Cruz
Yeah.
and doing what surface water
Right.
recommendations
Better.
were. And I think we've honed it down. And I guess I feel like to tell people that we're still in a groundwater emergency when it looks like we're going to be well below, the net pumping is going to be well below what our sustainability target is. I think, I'm not sure they're really paying attention to it as an emergency anyway, but they might be like, at some point say, are you crying wolf? Or are you just saying this? But I do think it's important that we have the messaging that like, we don't know for sure how it's all going to work out, but it looks good so far. So we really still need to, like you said, keep our messaging that conservation is important. But I don't know.
100%, I agree with you, Tom. It's a messaging thing.
Yeah, but
You mentioned, Melanie, are you done?
yeah.
So Melanie, you mentioned Nick's going to do something at 5% curtailment. Does he change things or?
Well, I was just saying, if we call for a stage 1, that basically is saying we want to reduce our pumping by 5%. If we call a stage 2, we want to reduce pumping accordingly per that percentage. That's
Well, we're calling for it, but the customers decide how much water they use.
well, our customers are using already that less. So it's basically we're saying that there's an equation, our production exceeds demand. Right. I'm sorry, what was?
So
Yeah. And one thing I did want to mention too is that there is a utility to the water shortage contingency plan. If we really did need our customers to reduce use, like if we had an earthquake and we lost use of some wells, we might actually need our customers to reduce down to 2,400 acre feet, which is a stage 3. So the messaging may get mixed a little bit if we are already in a stage 3
Yeah.
and knowingly operating above that.
good point.
Really, yeah, I'm in favor of repealing the 1908. That one, because of that, because I feel like this is an experimental time. We're collecting data, information, and also following what we're going into. We're in summer now. We are, going to see whether consumption goes up or there's going to be some dynamic stuff. And I would like to review this in the fall or even in the winter after rain starts, or just when a change happens without any trigger, stages. I would say I would be reluctant to put in an emergency stage now because we're in an experimental thing. I feel like we want to be able to jump in though and have an emergency meeting of the board if necessary to get things, change things if necessary.
And I'm assuming, carrying on with what you're saying, like if suddenly something happened where Pure Water Soquel was out of business for a while, some earthquake or whatever, we could declare an emergency at the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
With some noticing that's required, but it's a relatively short time.
Okay,
frame.
but yeah, not, you have to wait a whole year till this time.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to leave this.
And so I agree 100% that the major thing here, besides Pure Water Soquel, is that our demand projections have changed radically from the time I've been on the board, and probably everybody here, where it used to be an AMBAG projection that was, oh my God, incredibly high. And now we're projecting something more realistic. That said, R3 is coming on, or is this something where, so our there's going to be an increase in water use from that. And so is the plan to reevaluate in whatever that period is and see whether with the increase in water use, and also if we do decide that things are going the right way in terms of the recovery of the aquifer, the health of the aquifer, and we are able to sell water to Santa Cruz, then we reevaluate at that point too, based on, it's a different way of looking at it. You no longer have the 1,500 acre feet injection, you have less. So is that the plan that we're talking about here? I'm not in favor of stage 3, but I'm also not in favor of no stage. I think it's the messaging is wrong. We have an aquifer that is not sustainable. It's going towards that, but I think it's overly optimistic to say we're out of the woods.
So I want to make sure, is Jennifer raising a hand anywhere or need to say?
Oh, I'm not raising a hand, but I'm listening to everything and I'm agreeing exactly with what you're saying, Jaffe. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, and then Rochelle, do you have anything or want to say?
You don't think that we can continue conservation messages without a stage 1 or 2?
No, we can. Yeah. I think it'd be easier to have a stage 1 or 2 and actually base your message on, yeah, we're not out of the woods.
Well,
And Pure Water Soquel is looking very promising, and we hope next year we're out of the woods or whenever we're confident.
I would be really good with that.
I would be very in favor of that.
I think first, though, don't we have to deal with the current resolution?
Yes, so the recommendation would be to rescind the current stage 3 resolution. And then if you'd like us to bring back a potential declaration of a stage 1 or a stage 2, we just need direction to that effect because there's some noticing that's required.
Why don't we handle them separately?
I think you're right.
You were,
Oh, so I'll move to rescind the existing stage 3 emergency.
Just a second here.
but I was looking that way to see if you wanted to. All right, roll call, please.
Director Balboni,
Yes.
Vice President Christensen,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Happy to vote yes that we're far enough along to rescind it.
Director Lather,
Yes.
President LaHue.
Yes. So I'm just, people can bring up a motion to bring something back. I personally would be fine to wait until we see how it goes and
The end of this.
look at it later if we need it, but whatever.
Yeah.
I think the messaging would be more consistent if we did have a stage. I'd be willing to go stage 1. And the actions, if you look at the actions, they're not strong actions. It's more of a messaging.
Well, I guess what you're saying, like if we chose to put notices in hotel rooms and around our district, it sounds stronger, but we say we're still in a stage 1 water emergency because
It's called an alert, water shortage alert.
May I offer one thing Alyssa and I were talking about? When the stage 3 resolution was passed in 2014, the board also passed a resolution declaring a groundwater emergency. we were going to, revisit that and bring that back to the board following this resolution. And it might be an opportunity if you'd like to have that. We were going to have to rescind that one because if once a stage 3 was not declared, we would have to come back and do something with that one. There is a potential, if you guys are interested in that, is to modify that one to incorporate some of the messaging so that a revised groundwater declaration resolution could be passed, which would incorporate some items as well in the essence of what I think you guys are interested in, which is, water awareness, water reduction. We'll use water efficiently.
Couldn't quite hear you. Your voice is a little muffled on that.
Yeah,
microphone.
so there is a resolution, and unfortunately, I don't have the resolution number. Do you have it on the top of your head? Okay. It's a groundwater emergency resolution that was passed by the board somewhere in the realm of 2014, 2015. And it was part of the effort related to declaring a stage 3. You could also declare a groundwater emergency. So that resolution is something that we were going to scheduled to bring back to the board because it would need to be rescinded. It's no longer valid without a stage 3 declaration. That is an option if you wanted to consider when we bring that back to add some of the language that you're interested in terms of, water is important, heightened water awareness, water efficiency and conservation.
Without being connected to a groundwater
Right,
emergency stage. Okay.
Because currently, and Josh was one that kind of had shared a little bit with us, the declaration of an annual stage is typically done for the next 12-month period. And so kind of to respond to Dr. Jaffe's question about, there's new development coming online. How is that going to be reevaluated? When would it be reevaluated? We know that, Part 3 has not yet been developed. It still needs to have go through the permit process. That's not going to be built and impacting our water in the next 12 months. So as Alyssa mentioned, we'll be bringing this back again sometime in the spring. You guys would be revisiting whether to call a stage shortage for that next year. In addition, we have the GSP that has the annual report, just like what Cameron presented. So you'll be able to, again, see where those coastal monitoring wells are collecting data, presenting that. And again, that would be another step in our continual efforts of identifying the progress towards sustainability. We're not mandated by the state to be sustainable by 2040. That's the critical year under SGMA, but of course, we don't want to wait that long, and we're continuing to show progress, but we're also not necessarily mandated, thankfully, for this year,
Well, you remember Tom declaring that. And it was very key in our whole thought process and in our progress towards getting to where we are today. So it served its purpose. And it actually got us funding as well. We're not there. I totally get that. But I don't think we're out of the woods. And so I don't, looking at the actions for the stages, to me, stage 1, I still think that there's a benefit in using less water to increase the recovery time. I decrease the amount of time it takes for our aquifer to recover. And, so I'll just make the motion, and we'll see if we other people agree or not. I'll make the motion that we do have a stage 1 water shortage alert, and that our messaging to our customers includes what we've done with Pure Water Soquel and why we no longer need to be in a stage 3 emergency water shortage.
I'd like to second that.
To bring that back is what that is, right?
To bring it back, yeah. Then we'll
And
have
I'd
an
like to second
opportunity-
that.
We'll have an opportunity to evaluate whether we do want to do that. There'll be more data.
So the motion is to bring that back to consider.
Yes,
Okay.
to consider.
And then, I guess the staff could also bring back this other one at the same time that you're talking about, relooking at the resolution from 2014. So it would be a full discussion of what's the best way to approach it, probably.
That sounds reasonable, Tom.
Okay, so in a motion and a second, I heard over the loudspeaker.
Yes, please.
Dr. Balboni seconded to bring this back as a stage, bring back a stage one water shortage alert. So roll call.
Director Balboni,
Yes.
Vice President Christensen,
Yes.
Director Jaffe,
Yes,
Director Lather,
Yes.
President LaHue.
Yes, it doesn't, bring it back, and then can I just request staff bring that other back, or does that have to be a motion too?
We were going to have to bring it back because there's no longer a stage 3.
Doesn't need a vote. Great. Well, thank you all.
yeah. Thanks for the great work, Alyssa,
discussion.
and Cameron, Melanie, and the others.
Yeah, really, I really appreciate you presenting all that here. You know, I didn't, I'm not part of the MGA at the moment, and so I've really been wanting to kind of get that summary. So now, I don't think we have anything but move to closed session. So we shall do that.
Comment, public comment? No public here, but we should.
There wasn't a public